Take it away.
Alright, so hi everybody. I know y'all are waiting for me to wrap this up so we can get home early. But today for this lesson, I'm going to be going over the Reactionary 20s. Now, you see that little time frame I have there? Y'all probably already know what that is, and it goes by different other names. But first, I'm going to start off by having everyone raise their hands. Okay, so we'll start off with questions going that way. Nah, I'm just kidding. Put that down. But since y'all might have an idea of what this time frame is, what do y'all think was happening, or what do y'all know from 1920 to 1929? Just shout it out. Oh, you're free.
Well,
Great Gatsby.
Harlem Renaissance one.
Oh yeah, jazz, Renaissance, Great Gatsby.
The radio, Russia,
Ours.
Oh, that's a
Short
Prohibition.
First Red Scare.
first Red Scare. Then we got
The
the
Mafia.
three others. The Mafia.
Prohibition, the Clan. Tommy guns. Stop thinking of that next. The stock market crash in 1929.
Exactly, the favorite part of this whole decade, the crash. But see, y'all all have really great answers and things that we already know. The popular ones, Prohibition, jazz, Great Gatsby. He was real at that point. But today, sadly, I'm gonna take y'all a different direction. So we are in the Reactionary 20s, but today I would like to talk about nativism and the return of the Ku Klux Klan. So just before we get into that, I'm going to be jumping forwards and a little backwards for this PowerPoint. So yeah, how are we doing entering the 1920s? So of course, World War I ends in 1918, and with that we have a lot of soldiers returning back to the U.S., and we're all trying to get back to it, be normal again after all those atrocities, people losing their homes. We don't know what's going on in the U.S. till we get back. But of course, we also have one more thing to consider: the people that are experiencing those tragedies in the war in Europe. And so we have soldiers coming back home where they live, but now we have to also consider we're going to have a few waves, thousands of immigrants coming from Europe. But what makes this time a little more different, we're not having just the western part of Europe coming in. Now we have the eastern and the southern parts. And of course, that's okay, right? It's the land of opportunity. This is all that they've heard of from their families that have gone over, or the great stories that people bring back all the time when they're visiting. But we also, it's the United States. And so that might not be, that's good for us. Maybe in terms of labor, we're diversifying our social lives, culture, and everything. But it's the United States, so we're gonna have a problem because they're immigrants. And it's not just because they're taking our jobs. It's more of the fact that bringing their cultural mindsets and how the social, their social lives and stuff like that, in terms of like their religion and everything like that. They're bringing that over here, and while that's nice in a sense for the mixing pot of the United States, that's not going to be so good with other people who really love the way America is right now, for the fact that it's mainly traditional and Protestant. And so that's what we got going on here, that rising conservatism. So when we move on, how did we even get to that? So of course, this next one is Christian fundamentalism. Does anyone ever dabble in that and know what that is? Yeah, Kobe.
Okay, I know of it, and it's not very, in my opinion, it's very negative worldview. Focus on this specific version of our specific religion or face eternal damnation by our supposed all-knowing, all-powerful God, who conveniently only speaks through these specific people.
Yeah, so, you know what, he did, okay.
Really the exploitation of a historically inaccurate Bible in order to be used as a scapegoat or used as a reference point for xenophobia and nativism.
Yeah. I don't think I even need to do this anymore. Let's just. But yeah, so y'all are exactly right. So like I was saying, norms, in terms of gender, social life, all that. Yes.
To add on to what Mike said and everything like that, then in some cases, like that, some people like completely like committed acts of heresy and tried to rewrite the Bible to fit their own view of white supremacy to some extent or
Yeah. Yeah, so that you do bring up a good point. So yes, so Christian fundamentalism is the literalness of the Bible, right? But how do you interpret the Bible? Like, I'm gonna be like, I like this version of what the Bible says, but you can be like, no, it says immigrants aren't allowed. This is my space. Just kick everyone out. No one can be here because the Bible says so.
And wouldn't this like give rise to certain groups such as the Templars movement as well?
In a sense, well, yeah. And so, what the point I'm trying to get to is that don't look at that third part. I didn't get to it yet, so pretend it's not there. It's like, yeah. So the way people are, or more importantly, how Protestants are interpreting the Bible does give rise to like willful prohibition. Like it's the temperance movement. It devalues the religious morals of society, and so that's kind of where it's aiming at. And so when I'm gonna go back into this whole thing about the immigrant population coming in, there's nothing particularly wrong with that, other than they're not the righteous Anglo-Protestants that the United States is. They're bringing in new things such as progressive ideas on women, race, things like that. So that's bad. You can't have that. Oh yes.
Also, tying into religion, they're Catholics, they're Eastern Orthodox.
You know, those Catholics, they're probably the reason why it went downhill at this time. You know what? Let's just blame everything on the Catholics, right? That's basically where it's going. It's like everyone that is not here originally, it's all their fault. Blame it on them. And so that's what it is. This is rooted. Christian fundamentalism is the roots of nativism and why the Ku Klux Klan comes back. And so what's nativism? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When I first heard this word, I thought it was just like, Native Americans having a strong sense of pride in themselves. It's completely wrong. I learned my ways. So what it is, by definition, is the prejudice against any non-native born people. And so, and this time you have Catholics coming over, Jews, Russians, Italians, just everyday Europeans. But of course, that's not gonna fly. Because you see, they're coming in waves. By 1920, we already have close to about 1 million people coming in. Not just from Europe, but we also have to consider that we have an influx of people coming through the U.S.-Mexico border as well. And that's, can't emphasize it enough. That's just not good. You can't have people changing your ways here. And so what ends up happening, as usual, it's like, what are we gonna do, guys? We have all these immigrants. They're just changing everything that we have in America. And I don't like it as a Protestant, or more specifically as a white Anglo-Protestant. I don't like it. So what do? Well, like the United States has always done from the beginning, because we don't like foreign people here, we're gonna pass some laws. That should stop it, right? We're gonna pass some laws. And so that's where we get to the passage of the Immigrant Acts of 1921 and 1924. What they are basically is just, we're gonna limit the populations coming in by a certain percentage. So 1921 is about 3%, and they base it on the older census of the population they recorded back then. So 100,000 people came in, only 3% of that specific group would come. But the 1924 one is a little more, so they limited it down by about 2%. But this time, they're also establishing that onto anyone coming through the U.S.-Mexico border. And that's probably one of the earlier times where we're going to require people to have visas, and this is where we start doing the first terms of illegal alien. And so, because of that, the nativism, I want people coming in, and the fundamentalists are like, these people don't have the moral to have a line. So this is how we're going to restrict who comes in and who gets control. So we can move on. Yeah. I'm gonna actually have y'all get in groups of 3. Nah, I'm just kidding again, guys. It's gonna be a short little break. It's like 3 minutes. I know we just came back from a break. So just feel free to connection to the immigration laws of 19, it was either 21 or 24, but basically it was telling you the total population that was admitted through that like quota and stuff. So that's what it really is, like how many people like, so over this many people entering from Germany, like 1 million were entering.
My grandmother was one of those, 1923,
Really?
from Germany.
You need to do some, you need to tell some story. Share it. You know what, you can be my person.
That was really,
But yeah, no, it's more of like in reflection to like how the numbers were based on the law. Right? Yay. Alright, so like I said, the Ku Klux Klan, right? So originally we talked about this last week when we were covering Reconstruction, right? During that period, the KKK rises, and of course they're violently targeting free blacks as well as any supporters of that. So yeah, but of course it dies out. They're not as popular. But why did they come back? Like why? You can't usually make a good return like that after like 30 or 20 years, right? So what's going on at that point? So I gotta take y'all back again. All right, so the year is 1915. This guy named D.W. Griffith is a director, produces this movie, The Birth of a Nation. Have any of y'all ever heard of that? Yeah?
I think I have, but I was actually surprised that I've never seen this before. Maybe like in a clip when I was watching some other movie, but it's 15 minutes. I thought it would be longer.
Oh no. We'll get to that. Yes, Kobe?
I was gonna say, if I recall correctly, Woodrow Wilson, the U.S. president at the time,
Yeah.
not only resegregates the federal government, but also shows this film in the White House, and it's had a lot of glowing remarks about it. Oh man, this is the real history of the U.S.
You're so right. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. This is, from what I was reading, putting this together, it's one of the first movies, like silent films, that's gonna be really promoted. And of course, they do. I guess it was a smash hit, guys. Like #1 in box office. They do play it at the White House, and Woodrow Wilson did appreciate it, and to the extent that the quote I saw, he was like, "It's a lightning of history to a really ugly truth." But
What do you mean, like, but he resegregated the White House? Because I'm a little bit, I don't know exactly that part of history, or it's a little bit obscure to me.
yeah, I'm actually not too versed on that though. But would you like to explain a little bit? Or-
Yeah, the federal government before Wilson gets in office is at the minimum on paper not segregated, i.e. African Americans, minority communities in general, have the opportunity to integrate in some aspects into the federal government, even if it's just okay, they are working as bus boys, for instance, for congressmen or for different agencies. Wilson comes in there and just completely segregates. He says, nope, they're not even allowed to be, like, you can't even be a bus boy, let alone be like a aide to a congressman or senator.
Thank you, Kobe, for explaining. I don't know where I would be without you. But yeah, so the question of this, 15 minutes. That was the average time of a silent film. Can y'all guess how long this movie was?
Hour and a half.
It was 3 hours. About 3 hours.
Yeah, it was 3 hours. That's that's as long as Avengers Endgame. I just want that.
That's as long as Lord of the Rings is extended run.
Exactly. They watched Avengers and basically Lord of the Rings. There was no talking. There was some like, you got that little clip that was telling you like what's going on because no one's talking. But that's how powerful it was because to the extent this movie is romanticizing the Reconstruction, but more specifically the KKK at that point, and basically villainizing free blacks at that time. And so, yeah, that's what gives that extra push. It's a combination of fundamentalism, nativism, giving birth to this movie, gives birth to the second wave of the Ku Klux Klan. That movie is actually online. persuasions. They basically, at this point, a lot of politicians could not rely on, could not get to where they were without their support. So they had strong political influences. And to make it more local, the KKK here, at least in Houston, for one example, their intimidation and violence tactics were to the extreme that they were tapping phone wires and they would put their own spies out just to capture the unwanted. So it's pretty extreme. But it dies out by 1930. They didn't live through just like the last one still. Yeah. But just to wrap it up, why is this important? Why are these two elements important? Well, as you can see, we see that these social trends